Can you all see the screen?
We can, thank you. And just start recording. Great. Hi, everyone. Welcome. 1 week away, and we will be all together in Washington, D.C. So we are very excited to kick off today's program. And today's call is really, as it's named, logistics. We're going to walk you through everything, what to expect. We're going to talk about our asks and things that are going to occur next week. We are asking everyone to turn off their cameras and mute their lines for right now. When we open up at the end of the presentation, we'll open it up to questions and answers. So right now, I believe the program is being recorded. So we're going to kick off today's presentation. So next slide. As every year, we have a tremendous amount of support from local companies or national companies that give support to present Lung Force Advocacy Day. As you know, it takes a lot of time, logistics, money to put on this event. So we cannot do that without the sponsors that we have listed on the screen. We do have the opportunity on Wednesday's reception. We'd love for you guys to take the opportunity to personally thank the sponsors. They will be identified by name tags. But again, this is something that this is our 8th year of doing Lung Force Advocacy Day, and many of these sponsors have continued to support us over COVID, and they are just as excited as we are to be back in person. So next slide. Okay. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca, and she's going to talk about the game plan for the week.
Yeah, so I just want to say, like Annette said, we're really, really excited to see everyone in person and be able to meet you all. I know a lot of you already joined us for a virtual advocacy day, and although they're just as important, it's just not the same. So we are really excited that all of you are able to join us in DC next week. And I know you guys are eager to know what your week is going to look like. So we will talk about that. So next slide. Yeah, so Monday, everyone will be arriving in DC, and you don't have to worry about bringing anything for your hotel reservation. Joanne already took care of all that, but just remember to bring a credit card for a security deposit that you will get back, you know, as long as your room is just like you found it. And Monday is a free day for you guys when you arrive. Dinner will be on your own. We will be providing a welcome letter when you arrive to the hotel. It's going to have a list of nearby restaurants that you can check out within walking distance. So you know what's available around you, but feel free to do any sightseeing or anything if you if you arrive early to DC. It's just a day on your own. Next slide. And on Tuesday, we will be doing our training. So we are going to start off early at 8:30 with breakfast on your own. We do ask that you wear turquoise, and it's business casual. And that just means if everyone could just mute your phone, please. But business casual just means, you wear a nice top, skirts, trousers, just no jeans or t-shirts. Just make sure that you have comfortable shoes on as well. And like I said, breakfast will be on your own. And then from 9 a.m. to 9:45, we will be having our check-in and name tag pickup. And then from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., it's our advocacy day training. And we will give you more details about where that's going to be in the hotel. But we will have a lunch in there as well, and some opportunities for you guys to talk with other heroes and other staff. So time to mingle. And then in the advocacy day training, you can expect to have some icebreakers to go over our ask again, and to learn more about what's in your folders, soap pops, and your schedules. And also some opportunity for role playing of what our meetings are going to look like. And like I said, you also have time to mingle and to talk with other heroes and other staff. So definitely take advantage of that. And then at 6 p.m., we will have regional dinners, and believe you'll get more information about that from your state leads. So just if you haven't already, ask them about that, and they will provide you with more information on that. Next slide, please. And then Wednesday will be our advocacy day. So we do ask again that everyone wear turquoise, and this is a business professional with comfortable shoes. So just remember, ladies, don't wear heels because it is a hill it's called the hill for a reason. So, wear something that you are comfortable with, and you're going to be doing a lot of walking. So something that's not going to hurt your feet. And we will have a very early start to the day at 6:45. We will have breakfast at the hotel, and that will be provided for you. At 7 a.m., we will have Hill Packet pickups. If you do have a meeting early on in the day, you will receive your folders on Tuesday afternoon. But everyone else will be receiving them the day off on Wednesday. And then at 7:45, we will be departing to Capitol Hill to take our picture as well on the hill. And from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., we will be having our visits. So again, that's going to change what depending on who you're meeting with, and we will have the final schedules on Tuesday. So we cannot give you any information right now because they do change, and they could change up until the day of. So just know that that day we will be from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. you could be having meetings. And then from 5:30 to 7 p.m. we will have our Lung Force Hero reception, and that's going to be at the same hotel everyone's staying at yours truly in room 11. And then dinner will be on your own at 7:30. And just remember, every time I say on your own, you will be reimbursed for that as well. Okay, next slide, please. And then after we take the photo, everyone will be, like I said, will be going to your meetings. You are welcome to walk to your legislative meetings, or you are also welcome to take a Lyft or an Uber or a cab. If you have a lot of time in between your meetings, or if you finish early, you're welcome to go back to the hotel or do some sightseeing in DC. And there are also shuttle buses that will take you from the Capitol, from the areas where you're dropped off to the visitor center from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So just be aware of that. Your state leads can help you with that. So as well, if you guys know that you will be having trouble walking, just let your state leads know, and they can arrange for more Ubers and Lyfts if you guys have a lot of walking in between. Next slide. And this is a map of what Capitol Hill looks like. So if you see, you have the Capitol building in the middle, and then you have the Senate buildings on the north side, and then your House buildings on the south. So there is a little bit of walking distance in between them, about 15 minutes or so. So like I said, if you feel like that might be a little bit too much of a walk, just let your state lead know, and they can arrange for Ubers or Lyfts or cabs in between your meetings to make it easier for you. And also take advantage of the shuttle buses that are from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We'll give more information to your state leads about that as well. And also know that there are tunnels connecting the House buildings and the Senate buildings. You don't have to use them if if it's hard to find them, but just know they're there. So it's a cool fact. Next slide, please. Oh, and before I move on, just want to say that if it's too cold outside, or if it's raining or anything, also feel free to take an Uber or a Lyft. So just remember that. I know there is some possibility of rain. It will be a little cold, so state leads know that if that happens, then anyone's welcome to take a Lyft. And just a reminder for your meetings, no recording or pictures, no recording or audio. Pictures are allowed, but no video. It's just not a good idea. So you can definitely take a picture after your meeting. When you are done, ask the representative or your senator to take a picture with. Take a picture outside of their office, but just no audio recording during the meetings. Next slide. Right. And if you happen to have time in between your meetings, we will be providing a one-pager with to all of our participants in the folder. That's going to give you ideas of what to do between the meetings. If you do have a bigger chunk of time, that's 2 hours or more, you're welcome to do some visits in DC. Go visit the Library of Congress or any museums nearby. But just make sure you have a good amount of time allocated for that. So if one meeting is at 10 a.m. and you don't have the next one until 2 p.m., then that would be a really good example of when you can go visit that. Just remember to send follow-up emails to the staffers that you meet with. And log your feedback into the SoapOps mobile tool, which we will provide more information about that. And we also have a drive for pictures. So Lauren will talk more about that in a bit, but just remember to take pictures and upload them to our drive as you finish your meeting, so you don't forget. All right, next slide. And then Thursday will be the day that we say bye to everyone. Everyone will be traveling back. That's a little sad, but we will be happy that everyone was able to join us. But Thursday, everyone is traveling back home. And again, just want to say, remember to keep your receipts from the cabs and Ubers. And yeah, now next slide, and I'll hand it over to Erica.
Thank you. And friends, I am in need of warmth today, so I'm projecting myself into a warm spot in the Caribbean where I'm about to go snorkeling in the back. We want to make sure that we're talking in advance a little bit about what happens. We're still in a pandemic and know that COVID is still circulating. In fact, just heard from one Senate office yesterday that their senator has COVID right now. So it is out there, and we want to make sure that we're all understanding that, number one, nobody wants to come to Washington with COVID. Nobody wants to leave Washington with COVID. And of course, we do not want to have any sort of particularly people who are vulnerable to a severe infection because of COVID. We want to make sure that we're taking care of everyone and focusing on the maximum health. So before you come, we ask you to kind of do a sense of your symptoms. Do you have symptoms? Have you been recently exposed to someone? And frankly, it doesn't hurt everyone to take a rapid test before you head to the airport, because we would rather have you safely in your home as opposed to coming out into public or into DC if you are positive with COVID, or frankly, any other sort of infectious disease, right? We talk a lot about COVID, but of course, influenza is still circulating. Pneumonia is always a possibility, which is, as well. So we ask you, please don't come to DC if you think you have COVID or you do test positive for COVID. But please communicate with both Annette and me or any of the team if that is the case. And while you are here, if you start to experience any symptoms, please again, talk to Annette or me or Joanne or really any of the team. You can text your state lead to let them know, and we will make sure that you are connected with a rapid test as quickly as possible, so we can go from there. Next slide, please. So how are we going to keep everyone safe, recognizing that we're coming in from across the country and we're all exposed to different things at different times, but we do have some people who are coming who are immunocompromised, who are in the middle of active treatment that is just pummeling their own immune systems. So we need to be respectful of everyone there. We're asking and really requiring everyone to wear masks on planes and trains and in in cabs or Lyfts or Ubers, the airport at Union Station if you're coming in via train. And then we're also going to ask everyone to wear your masks during Advocacy Day training on Tuesday. We will ask our speakers to take off their masks while they're at the podium because we want everyone to be able to understand. And we know it can be very hard to understand people when masks are on and people are talking behind them. But otherwise, while we're together, we ask that everyone wear your masks. We are also strongly encouraging everyone to wear masks while on Capitol Hill and also during the reception on Wednesday evening. We have some really cool Lung Association branded masks that we'll be happy to provide to you if your stock has gotten low. But we also don't want to not know who any of you are. And so if you are taking a photo, please take off your mask for a second for photos so that we're not just looking at, I know when I put my mask on and I have mine right here, you can't really tell who I am. So we want to make sure that we are able to see your faces. And of course, when you're outside, unless it keeps your face warm, please feel free to take it off. And we can answer any specific questions about this at the end. We will be eating together, of course, and that, nothing is perfect, but we really want to reduce as much as possible the risk of anyone catching or transmitting COVID, especially for those who are immunocompromised. Next slide, please. So what about the weather? I just mentioned cold faces. Of course, Advocacy Day, it's not allowed to rain. And for those who have known me for a while, you know that I am absolutely obsessively rechecking AccuWeather, which is my go-to source for weather, at least twice or 3 times a day now, because I really want to know what's going to happen. And right now, we are looking at a mostly sunny day for Wednesday, the 29th, which is just awesome. So excited. It is not fun to be on Capitol Hill when it's raining, I promise you. But we are looking chilly. And so particularly for our morning picture, you are going to want to bring a coat and some other things that you can bundle up in. It's a little bit of a pain to haul them around, but I assure you that it is significantly better than being cold while you're walking, or even worse, waiting outside to get into the building because there's a particularly long line for security. So please bring your warm clothing just to have, and it looks like we'll continue to keep you posted on the weather too. But it does look like Monday it might be raining a little bit. And so it's good to have your umbrella. But I do love me that was 0% chance of rain that AccuWeather is predicting right now for Wednesday, even if it is a little bit chilly. Next slide, please. So let's go over our asks real quick, and then we'll go through some of the materials we sent you the other day. Next slide, please. Okay, our first is around healthcare. And again, we are asking members of Congress to support and protect Medicaid. We will give you some additional context when we go over the asks again, but right now we are anticipating as little as 2 weeks after our Advocacy Day, there could be a budget proposal on the House floor that would significantly cut funding for Medicaid, which is very problematic given how important it is for people living with lung cancer, for kids and seniors and individuals with disabilities. We also know that there could be additional efforts to add barriers to care, such as the so-called work requirement, which is really just a paperwork requirement. So our ask is extraordinarily timely and will need to be very front and center because we know how unique an opportunity it is that all of the stars align for you all to be making these asks so quickly towards to when action is going to begin on consideration of cutting Medicaid. Next slide, please. We are also, again, extraordinarily helpful time as the committees will be working on their bills that look at the ultimate funding levels for both CDC, where we are asking for $11.6 billion in funding for CDC. to make sure that our nation's health is protected from disease, infectious as well as not, including lung cancer. Next slide. And Congress is also going to be looking at funding for the National Institutes of Health. And we will be asking for that $51 billion, as we have mentioned. Next slide, please. So I am now going to turn things over and we will go from there. Thank you.
All right, so how is this exactly going to work? We want you guys to arrive on time, have your business cards ready and ready to share with the staffer and the member. Conduct the meeting as per your plan with your state lead. You should be meeting with your state lead right before your meetings and figuring out your game plan before you step into those meetings. And when the meeting is done, we want you guys to send a follow-up email to the staff, send out a friendly tweet, tagging the office and thanking them for joining you and agreeing to your asks if appropriate. And let both Erica and Reggie know if any Hill follow-up is needed using LFAD follow-up. Finally, check your schedule via the Soapbox app, like we mentioned earlier, to confirm your next call is when you actually think it is, because we did mention earlier that many of these meetings are subject to change up until the last hour. Next slide, please. So who's going to be in your meetings besides you and your state lead? There may be other heroes or board members from your state that may be joining you. And for some congressional meetings, another staff person from the American Lung Association may join you as well. Senators, representatives, and their staff are joining. Hi, Erica. I see your hand. Yeah, that should be typically it. But usually it should be between 2 and 4 people in your meeting, unless you're from a much larger state. Next slide, please. So a couple tips for your meetings before you go into them. Next slide, please. Do what works for you and your team. Like I mentioned earlier, have a plan and sit down with your state lead to make sure you know what your game plan is before you go into your meeting. And stick to that plan afterwards. Make sure you strategize before each individual representative and make sure it's tailored to each of the representatives' needs. All right, next slide, please. So this is a good example of what your typical meeting will look like. We did share earlier a video of our lovely hero, Aaron Hawkins, having an example meeting that we uploaded to YouTube. So check your inboxes. It should have been sent a couple of weeks back if you want to review that video. But this is essentially how it went there. So if you request business cards, we will be giving them to you. If you have personal business cards, please make sure to bring them. Because on your way in, we want you to give them to the staffer or representative if you're just meeting with your representative. Take the drinks or snacks that are offered if you'd like. I know a lot of offices have great snacks that they have laying around their office, and it's a great way to stay hydrated or keep your hunger level in check as you go through the day, because there's a lot of walking involved as you go along. Anticipate small talk. A lot of these representatives or staffers are going to want to talk to you about little nuances of your state, like we were talking about in the example meeting with Aaron. Make sure to try to pivot away from that as quickly as possible. We do have very limited time with these representatives, and we want to make sure that we're focusing on our asks. Small talk is great, but keep it to a minimum. So the state lead should begin after a little chit chat as you sit down. They're going to thank them for joining us, have an introduction to you, the heroes, and to our asks. Then you're going to start by thanking them for joining and share your 2-minute version of the story and make the asks. Allow the staff member or member to respond for dialogue and just chat a little bit about what these asks mean for you and for them. Finally, after your meeting, you can get a picture with the member, either outside of their office or wherever the member would like. And then make sure, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but make sure to upload that to our Google Drive, our shared drive. And then finally, the state lead will follow up, will tell you that you're going to follow up, and they're just say thank you and some curt goodbyes. Next slide, please. All right, I'm going to hand it back over to talk about Hill packets.
Hey, hi everybody. So quick things before I start talking about Hill packets. We've been throwing around the word soapbox, I noticed. And so some of you might know who Soapbox is, some of you might not, and you're newer, and that's okay too. So Soapbox are people, is a company that we contract with, and they help us schedule all your meetings, which is really lovely because it would be a lot of time to schedule those meetings on our own. But they will come in on Tuesday and have a training session and go over your schedules. They'll explain that mobile tool and that app that we were mentioning, where we'd love for you all to put your feedback forms in. So all of that will be further explained for you all on Tuesday. The other thing is that for CDC, as Erica mentioned, our ask is $11.6 billion for FY24. I know in our initial kickoff call or our asks presentation, it had said 11 billion. And if you noticed that, good for you. That did change to 11.6 in the last 2 weeks. The president's budget request did come out, and the administration asked for 11.6, and we loved that it was a higher number, and thus we have adapted our ask to reflect that. So moving on to Hill packets. So we're going to go over a few of the documents that you all received just yesterday or the day before. There will be more that will be included in your Hill packets, and we'll go over those in greater detail on Tuesday.
Reggie, you just got on mute.
Goodness me, how did I do that? Okay. So just to share, so you're going to see on the left side, we have this congressional priorities document. This just really highlights all three of our asks in a very succinct way. And it's a great page for you to definitely point out to the staffer just to see all three of our asks. We're also going to have a document on protecting and supporting Medicaid. It not only explains what Medicaid is, why it's important, how it provides essential health care, but it also ties in that lung cancer connection as well. I did it again. I muted myself again. Okay. The other two one-pagers that we shared with you all are around CDC and NIH's roles in lung cancer. And we tried to do our very best in highlighting how the work that CDC and NIH do around lung cancer spans across a variety of institutes, programs, and just to show that it's a more widespread effort that both CDC and NIH have to really also emphasize why we're asking for top line numbers, why we're asking for 11.6 billion, and why we're asking for 51 billion, and rather than specific programs. It's because they just do a lot of work, and it spans across a lot of divisions and programs. There's a lot more that's going to be included in your Hill packets, and like I said, we'll go over that next week, but just to have a little preview. I'm going to pass it back to Lauren to talk about pictures.
All right, this is a much more fun section. We really want to encourage you guys to take pictures. Next slide, please. So don't be shy to take a selfie. Take as many pictures as you want outside of your congressional meetings. Capitol Hill is super cool. I know I will be very excited to be there. There's a lot of offices if you're just milling around that you might want to take a selfie with, or if you just find somebody in the hallway that you ask if you want to take a selfie with. There's a lot of people walking around that you might know. Next slide, please. As a reminder, no video or audio recordings in your actual congressional meetings. And I saw in the chat that just a reminder that some of your representatives might not want to take a picture. So please do ask and be respectful if they do not want to take a picture. Next slide, please. All right, this is that Google Drive we were talking about. So we are going to share a link with you to our shared Google Drive photos album. When you take all these lovely pictures, we want as many as possible, by the way, we are asking you to upload them to this shared Google Drive. You do not need a Gmail account to use this. You can just go ahead and upload photos at your will. You can add photos using the blue button or the cloud icon if you're on your phone, and select Photo Library to add any photos you want to share from your phone's library. And one final thing we are asking, just because we're having so many pictures, hopefully coming in, we want you guys to add your last name or your first name and your state as a comment on the photos that you upload. There should be a little button that you can push next to your photo that will allow you to add a comment. Next slide, please. Oh, and we will be sharing this link with you later. We will be following up with that. If this does not work, if all else fails, you can just email Annette to upload your photos, and we'll get them anyways. Next slide, please. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to Annette.
Great, thanks, Lauren. And so we know this is a lot of information, and we will be following up with you with the PowerPoint, the audio recording. So thank you for your continued participation in this call and listening to all this great information. But we also are providing the opportunity that not only you will be asking your members of Congress, but your friends and family can also participate in Advocacy Day. We really encourage you to ask them for their support. Next slide. It's very simple. We will have a link for folks. It will go out in our broadcast email, and we will invite and encourage everybody to go to lung.org/advocacy day. And there will be 3 asks. We will have the opportunity for them to call their senators and representatives. We have the automated that they'll look up their senators for them and give them the phone numbers. And we also provide a link to send an email to Congress and to tweet about it. We give them sample tweets, and they can look to see how they can tag their members. So more to come, but please share that with your friends and family as well. Next slide. So we're going to just briefly do a Wednesday morning checklist, go over this again. Next slide. Again, wear turquoise. Remember to eat and hydrate at the breakfast at the hotel. You will meet up with your state lead and you will board the bus together. We encourage, as Lauren said, we encourage you to take selfies and other photos with heroes and others throughout the day. We asked you to upload your photos to the Google Drive. We did pop that into the chat, but we'll also be sending an email. But upload it to the Google Drive. When you do, you just right-click. There's a comment box, and you would just say Annette Iyer, Pennsylvania, just so we can identify you. We are going to ask you, again, to encourage folks to go to lung.org/advocacy day to help lead their support. And advocacy leads are also asked to send this to their local leadership boards as well. Next slide. Meeting reminders. In the top right-hand corner, you will see that when you get your information from Soapbox, there is a help desk and there's a live assistance. That number is up on the right-hand corner, and that will be readily available to you when you get your Soapbox agendas for the day. But tips for advocates. Remember, before you go into a meeting, make sure you silence or turn off your phone when you go into the meeting. Do not introduce topics that are not part of our shared messaging. The average length of your meeting will be 15 to 20 minutes. Time is at a premium, but be as clear and succinct with your stories and statements as possible. And try to share the love and not monopolize the conversation so that everyone has their equal time and part to share their messaging. Fact sheets will be left behind with the folder after the meeting. So if you forget to say something, if you forget to mention it, your state lead can come in and close out the meeting. But if for some reason you don't get all of the information, there will be the fact sheets left behind and the leave behinds with the ask with the member. We do ask that you do not debrief in a public place unless you are the only ones around. The walls do have ears, so be careful. Next slide. Erica just put in the chat, for those of you who would like business cards, if you have your own professional business cards and you want to share those, great. If not, if you do need business cards, fill out the link that's in the chat and we can create them for you. As you can see on the screen, this is what it looks like. It would have your name, and anything that you want to provide. If you would like to provide your cell phone number and your email address, but it also will share the link to your story. So when you give the business card to the member, they will have your contact information, and then they flip it over and they can do the QR code and they'll be able to read your story. If for somehow you're meeting with a staffer and the staffer wants to give it to the member of Congress, it's a great way to get your story, continue to communicate. For those of you, if you have had the opportunity to share your story on lung.org, thank you for that. I know it was a lot of work, and we really do appreciate you sharing your journey with us and sharing your story. It is going to be listed, if you've given us permission, in the directory. It will be your photo and a link to your story, so that each of you, before you get to Advocacy Day, will have the opportunity to meet some of your other fellow heroes from other states. So that's also where we're utilizing your story. And again, just make sure, state leads and heroes, that you've connected together to talk about the strategy of how you're sharing your story and the format of the meeting. Next slide. Things to expect when you get, things to expect from us. The agenda, you have received that yesterday. You also received PDF of a few, I think two or three of the Hill one-pagers. Your initial soapbox schedule you will get this week. And remember, it's subject to change up until and including on Wednesday, because sometimes the members have different schedule changes. So don't be alarmed if your schedule does change. You will receive a tote bag in DC that will include a mask, a hand sanitizer, and some light snacks. Next slide. So we had, for all of you, we had the opportunity, if you are interested, you have been working with your state lead and your local communications person. Our media team has been they will be sending out a national press release talking about the event and the efforts that we are making. But we will also be sending out state and local press releases. I hope this is not news to anyone. I'm positive by now that each of you have had the opportunity to talk via email or phone with your communications person. And so that's just one of the things that we encourage you to consider. And if you are willing and willing to talk to a member of the media, one of our team members, Jill Dale, she would be happy to talk with you and potentially use you in any interviews that are forthcoming. So we will put that in the chat as well, but her name is Jill Dale at lung.org. Next slide. So real important, again, reimbursements. On Monday, we will reimburse you from the travel to the airport. Once you get to the airport, we will pay for the taxi from DCA to yours truly. Just please make sure to keep all your receipts and only tip the taxi, Uber, Lyft driver up to 20%, no more than 20%. Monday evening dinner is on your own. We will reimburse you for $50 for your dinner on Monday night. On Tuesday, breakfast, we will reimburse you $25 for your breakfast. Lunch is provided and dinner is provided Tuesday night. Wednesday morning, breakfast is provided. But on Wednesday afternoon, we will provide you up to $25 for lunch and up to $25 for, up to $50 for dinner on Wednesday evening and $25 for Thursday breakfast. All of these things we will reimburse you for, but please just keep the itemized receipt for everything so that we can get your reimbursement back to you quickly. Next slide. And again, this just highlights the itemized receipt, and the no alcohol can be reimbursed, and snackage, I think that's a new name we came up with, but snacks are not reimbursable. So if you get breakfast, please make sure you get a drink and a pastry or a sandwich, but we can't reimburse just coffee and snacks. It has to be an actual meal. Next slide. Very cool thing. Cherry blossoms are expected to be in bloom March 22nd to the 25th. So more to come. We look forward to hoping you have the opportunity to see this beautiful thing that happens every year in DC. Next slide. Now we're going to open it back up to questions, and we'll provide some answers. So if folks want to go ahead, and we'll take down the PowerPoint and give people the opportunity to ask any questions, and we'll try to address the questions that are in the chat.
And as we wait for a couple of questions to come into the chat, I just wanted to touch base about a couple things. So as Annette mentioned, on Wednesday, that is tomorrow, you will be getting an initial schedule from Soapbox Consulting. And if, again, we have asked you not to contact Capitol Hill on your own, and that still is in place. But if you have any questions about your schedule, you can reply to them. Please know that this is subject to change. So if it looks like you've got meetings at 9:30 and 10 and you're like, oh, hey, I can, old friend, I can come see you for lunch at noon. Please don't, because we know that your schedule can very well change. And sometimes you might be scheduled to meet with a member and they get called for a vote. And so you can be as flexible as you can and kind of say, hey, can we come back later to get a quick picture with the member with that too. So please make sure that you keep your schedule unscheduled unless you know for sure that you've got a big break that day and you can kind of do an impromptu off campus. Also just really want to encourage you, you do, and you heard from Lauren about kind of having a general plan to go into meetings. That is something that you will continue to do, kind of like you saw those role play videos with Aaron and Charlie and Shannon. We're going to continue to we're going to do some more while we're here in person. So you kind of get a good expectation for what that could be. And we're going to do we'll throw you some curveballs too, especially those of you who are going into potentially different offices that may have some challenges with funding requests or healthcare requests. And so we want to make sure that everybody is practicing role plays that may be appropriate. So just be prepared that, as you saw on your agenda, that we're going to do some of those. And then also, before you come, make sure you have a 15-second version of whatever you want to tell your member of Congress. Because I can't tell you the number of times we hear from heroes or the state leads saying, oh my gosh, my hero just bumped into Senator Collins at the airport, because they're coming to town on the same flights that you are. So there is a good chance that, especially for the places that have only a couple flights to DC, if you're flying out on Monday morning, you could be on the same flight as your lawmaker. And so you want to be prepared in the airport when they're going through their briefing books and doing all the things that their staff told them to do over the weekend that they procrastinated on, that you're there ready to ask your quick 15-second question. I'm going to town, I'm coming to town with the American Lung Association. I am a lung cancer survivor, and we are going to ask that you protect and preserve Medicaid, that you can support a $51 billion of funding for NIH and $11.6 billion of funding for CDC. Bam, you're done, 15 seconds. So please just be ready for all of that too, because again, you just never know. So with that, why don't we go through the questions in the chat first, and then John, if you can hold on 1 second, we'll come back.
Sure.
There was a question in the chat asking if there are any security restrictions on what can be taken to the House and Senate buildings. You will be given tote bags, and you can definitely keep all the folders in there. You can keep some snacks. You can bring your water bottle. But just note that you're going to go through airport security when you enter into these buildings. You're going to have to put your bag through the security and then take off all metal and whatnot, and that's kind of it. They kind of have the same rules that most airports do.
Yes.
Around.
So please leave your nunchucks at home.
Yeah.
And any like fighting stars that you would otherwise throw. Those are not appropriate for bringing to town, either through our nation's airport system or to Capitol Hill. And as Paul just pointed out, no mace or pepper spray as well. So leave all of that behind as well. John, do you have a quick question?
Yes, I do. Can you distinguish between federal funding for Medicaid and state funding for Medicaid?
We're going to not get into that if we can right now, because this is really about protecting the overall program and asking Congress not to cut the federal aspects. And so that's what we're really staying high level on. So I'm happy to talk to you about that offline, but I think for the purposes of our asks and not getting too far down, if you don't mind, John, I'm gonna keep it up at the
fine.
real high level. Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you.
What other questions do folks have?
So Erica, there's a question about the holding fee for the hotel room. I mean, we can verify. I think that typically it's when they come in, they verify. I don't know the exact that they hold. I think it's
It might just be that they have a credit card on file in case you order or do any fees for your rooms. I don't know if it's an actual deposit since we are taking care of your hotel expenses.
Yeah.
I think that you're all set there. I think it's just in case you incur any expenses, but otherwise you won't be charged. To follow up a little bit on the slide that where we mentioned that other people might be popping into your visits. And so hopefully by now you have met obviously your state lead. There may be one hero from your state as well. We have a few states where there are a couple folks coming out. You may have members of our board of directors in with you. I see on the screen right now 2 of them, and they are coming because we are so thankful for our strong support for our advocacy and our mission from our national board of directors, and greatly appreciate their support. So they will be going around with their home state folks, and so hopefully you've already been introduced to them, but if not, you will. And you're going to plan for all of your role plays and everything else with them included too. And then you all are in demand by members of of Congress and on Capitol Hill. And sometimes there are a couple members that may be a little bit higher on our priority list to meet with because they are the decision makers on some of our asks. And so if I can ask Paul Billings to pop on real quick, you'll meet Paul on advocacy during the training as well. But Paul, myself, or our CEO, Harold Wimmer, may be joining you for a meeting or at least to drop in at the beginning, just to make sure that that member understands that not only do we have constituents back home that really care about these asks, but we're also going to be there to learn a little bit more, to listen, and perhaps follow up for a quick minute on the way out the door too. So just to share that with you. Don't worry, we're not inviting 57 people to join you in your Hill offices. Are folks excited? Because we are. We really, really are. Monique, I'm excited to see you too. Monique is an old friend. Really glad to see her. What other questions do folks have about logistics in DC? Oh, let's talk for a moment. The reason that we do the dinners on your own on Monday night and on Wednesday night is that we know people are going to get here at different times throughout the day, and we don't want to try to coordinate anything if your flight is late or you're just like wanting to chill because you have been around people in that hotel or on that airplane all day and you just want some time alone. So that is why we do dinner alone then. And we also know on Wednesday night that after all of that, again, people may just want to go back and crash. I'm usually one of those people that just wants to go back and crash because I'm overstimulated by then. And other people may want to just say, hey, I met this really cool person from another state. Let's go grab dinner. So it's completely up to you, but we just wanted to leave that flexibility in there. And that's why we do those meals on your own.
Erica, so we have a question about who do we return the receipts in to get reimbursed? We're going to give you, that's going to go to Joanne. We're going to give you a self-addressed envelope with a stamp that you can fill out your reimbursement form with your receipts and then mail that back into Joanne Kramer. You will get that when you check in. That'll be in your packet. And of course, if you lose that envelope or receipt, you can always contact any of us and we can get that to you. So.
Yes.
And
yes, Jay, and Nelson, we see your question in there. By all means, you can just use it as a donation to the Lung Association. Thank you. And good call, Portia. That's what we do. You'll see staff furiously running around taking pictures of our receipts so we don't worry about losing the paper. Portia knows. Who's been to Washington before? A lot of folks? I don't know. We can't see everybody, but I'm starting to see some hands come up. Wonderful. That's great. Well, this is the best time of the year to come. It really is, before it starts to get gross. Great.
There's some people that have their hand raised.
That might just be for those coming to town.
Okay. I forgot that we could raise our hands for that. Does anybody else have any questions? Doesn't have to be about the asks, can be about, you know, what's the best Smithsonian museum you should go to on Monday, or anything like that. We're more than happy to help answer any of those questions as well.
And I will say that the Google Photos is very simple. It's very easy and it's kind of fun. So that does make it kind of fun that we can kind of all see what's going on with one another. So please use that and take some pictures while you're here in DC.
Paul, is that Paul? Yes. A turquoise polo is absolutely wonderful for Tuesday.
Great.
Okay, Andrea did ask, what's the best museum? Okay, DC folks, put in a museum. It's going to be everybody has a very different one.
The National Gallery of Art is right across the street from the Capitol. So I'll just throw that out there.
And the Botanical Gardens is actually on Capitol grounds. And so if you're on the house side, especially, and you just have a couple minutes to come over, that's a really good one. And all of these are free. So that's the coolest part. I love that. We've seen some good portrait gallery. Good question about attire for dinner. Confirm with your state lead, but generally, you can the business casual attire is absolutely fine.
Quick thing about the museums, and then we don't have to talk about museums again. The Air and Space Museum and the African American History Museum do require timed entrances. They are the two Smithsonian museums that still require that. So if you're interested in attending or going and visiting on Monday, you might want to look ahead of time to try to get those free timed entrance tickets.
Goodness gracious, I had one other thought in my head. Oh, hotel rooms. We have not been at this hotel since before times. And we know that it has been renovated and retooled, and we're kind of all laughing that their rooms are called 9 and 10 as opposed to like the Hamilton room or the Roosevelt room. But we have no idea how their temperature control is. So if you tend to get hot, wear layers. If you tend to be cold, bring layers. We just have no idea what to expect, but I always get cold, and so you're gonna see me and if you have turquoise on the bottom and you're bundling up with your scarf that isn't turquoise, that is absolutely okay. Warmth is number one, or coolness is number one. What about some of you folks that are have been here before, either in town, because there are a few of you on the call, or even virtually? What are your last minute words of advice? Anything? Okay.
Eric, it's Joanne. I see a few hands up. Did you get those? Nancy Smith and Lisa?
Lisa,
Do you have questions? Do you and Nancy have questions? Are we still responding from being in town before? That was Nancy. Okay. Well, good. So why don't we do this? We're gonna anyone can hop off, but if you still have a question that you want to ask in just a smaller audience, we're going to turn off the recording, and then we'll hang on for just a couple more minutes in case anyone has any specific follow-up. But you can always ask your state lead or contact us through LFAD at lung.org anytime. And we cannot wait to see you all. We just cannot wait for you to be here. And we will see you bright and early.